Good afternoon and welcome to Snack and Chat with the VI SBDC. But before we get started, we would like to share a little bit of information with you.
Has your business been affected by COVID-19? The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is available to assist entrepreneurs and small businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VISBDC is sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration and collaborates with local agencies to support the small business community. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and provides free consulting, business education training, and technical assistance. Attend workshops with subject matter experts from both the public and private sector. From idea generation to exit strategies, the staff at the VISBDC is ready to assist you. Now is the time to contact them if you need assistance with the Federal Paycheck Protection Program. So don't wait. Call or email them to find out how they can help your business grow and succeed.
¿Su negocio ha sido afectado por COVID-19? El Centro de Desarrollo de Pequeñas Empresas está disponible para ayudar a los empresarios en las Islas Vírgenes de los Estados Unidos. El VISBDC es sostenido por la Universidad de las Islas Vírgenes y la Administración de Pequeñas Empresas de los Estados Unidos para apoyar a la comunidad de negocios pequeños. El VISBDC está acreditado a nivel nacional y ofrece consultoría gratuita, educación empresarial y asistencia técnica. Asista a talleres con expertos en la materia, tanto del sector público como del privado. Desde generaciones de ideas hasta estrategia de salida, el personal del VISBDC está listo para ayudarlo. Ahora es el momento de contactarlos si necesita ayuda con el Programa Federal de Protección de Pago, ya que esta oportunidad de financiamiento está programada para finalizar el 31 de marzo del 2021. Llame o envíe un correo electrónico para averiguar cómo puede ayudar a que su negocio crezca y tenga éxito.
Now, welcome to Snack and Chat. This is Monday afternoon, and I have as my guest this afternoon Ms. Shami Carr from the Disability Rights Center. And today's program is an overview of the ADA primer. And Ms. Shami Carr has years of experience with the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands and the ADA Center out of Cornell University. So at this point, I'll turn control of the session over to Ms. Shami Carr.
Thank you, Mary Jo, very much, and welcome, and thank you if you're joining us live on Facebook, if you've joined us with Zoom, if potentially you're calling in, wherever you may be, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint to be able to start the presentation, so just 1 second, please. All right, so as Mary Jo said, today we're going to talk about the overview of the Virgin Islands SBDC's ADA Primer Series during COVID-19, and I'll explain what all that means in terms of the partnership and how it was born. In terms of everything that DRCVI has been collaborating with the Small Business Development Center, along with some other employment organizations, we've kept the whole focus on COVID-19. And so even though this was born out of last year, there's still a lot of application, and there's some resources that are still very timely to what's going on right now. So with that, we welcome you. We hope you're well, you're safe, you're healthy, and your loved ones are well as well. And in terms of COVID-19, we really want to bring information that makes things easier, more accessible, definitely free. And that's one thing I think that we'll be able to at least provide to you is some information that maybe you weren't aware of that now can be part of your toolkit so that you can have some of those resources. And again, some of it might even include funding. So in terms of the USVI, SBDC, and DRCVI relationship, we decided way back in January, actually, of 2020 to start talking about what would be a great opportunity for us to collaborate, something that would really be helpful to be able to provide to the territory for the small businesses to make it concise, specific, but also comprehensive. And so what we came up with is to create what's called Making Your Small Business Accessible. that, like I mentioned, it was born out of the ADA for the 30th anniversary last year. And because of the milestone of this anniversary, though, sadly, right during a pandemic, we wanted to do something, again, we meaning SBDC and DRCVI, to have something concrete that we can not only do, one time, but that we can continue throughout the year and continue to roll that out. So in October of 2020, we rolled out the full training in a 4-part series to celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. That was another substantial anniversary, the 75th anniversary. And again, purpose is to make sure that the small businesses in the USVI that has information that is specific and up to date. That's one of the biggest things that we find, and businesses absolutely have to have information, whether we're talking about COVID-19 and CDC and FDA and all that, or if we're talking about disability in a sense of occupancy, in the sense of barrier removal, in the sense of tax credits. So very specific information. We want to make sure that it's right up to date for you and provide that to you throughout the year. In addition, we have done some additional trainings that small businesses were interested in, but not necessarily an intense part of the primer. That included information regarding accessible websites, including e-commerce. SBDC and DRCVI has already done a couple of trainings to talk about whether it's accessible elements on a website. We did that in July of last year to celebrate again the ADA. We continued that also this winter. We did one on how, accessible features of a website and some of that e-commerce or platforms. So if you're a business out there that would like more information on that, do know that even though it's not part of the primer, we can absolutely get you more information on that, and anything else you might think of that is related to your specific business. Just want to make sure that people know who we are. We are the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. We're part of a national network called the Protection and Advocacy Network. Our mission is to ensure the just treatment of people with disabilities in the territory. We provide advocacy, information and referrals, guidance, legal advocacy, and training. We are an affiliate of the Northeast ADA Center out of Cornell University that provides technical assistance and training regarding the ADA. You can reach us via phone, via email. Contact information is there. At the end, I will also have another slide to give you more information. So when we started out with this, again, last year, talking about what would be a good way to bring this information forward. One thing that SBDC and we were talking about is the fact that, you can't run a training for 8 hours. No small business has that amount of time. It's hard to even maybe get a half-a-day training. So what we decided was to provide the information in chunks or modules. And we broke them down into 4 modules. And they're the ones that we'll go through today a little bit more specifically, but not full detail, of course, because each one of these modules is a 2-hour training. So basically, this 4 training module for small businesses is in total 8 hours, but separated or bifurcated out 2 hours at a time per the topic. Now, let's say you're a small business and you say, my biggest issue right now is I'm just having a hard time trying to figure out marketing. Okay, I see marketing is on the list. It's on the 4th. I wonder when that will be rolled out, or we're going to talk about it, or maybe you would like that training specifically just for your organization. And that is something certainly we could just hone in on what's your need with that training. Other people might be working on accessibility and physical access. They may be more interested in the 1st or 3rd module, which is the small business primer from DOJ or the accessible elements. Some, again, have other issues of engagement and wanting to know, how do I serve customers with disabilities? I'm not that comfortable. I don't know how to train my staff. And so, again, wherever your need is, we feel SBDC and DRCVI feel that one of these categories, probably you may have some questions, and in total, you certainly could get a very comprehensive overview. So I just want to give you the very kind of in-depth reason for this training, the structure of this training, and again, how it became to be as part of now SBDC's training curriculum or a series. And we really appreciate that, not only with DRCVI, but the commitment that SBDC has taken very much so, particularly since the 30th anniversary. And this is just one of many things that they have done to really celebrate that and to make it sustainable. So kudos to SBDC. Okay, so let's just dive in. If people have questions, I don't know, Facebook or anywhere else have questions, just feel free to interrupt, in the chat room or otherwise. So I'm going to go ahead with the information. So the first one that we talk about is Module 1. Now, Module 1 to me, in a way, is kind of a foundational piece because it's something that we want to make sure that small businesses definitely know where to start. And when we talk about, if we're talking about a situation where maybe this is a new business or an upcoming business, you really want to know what those foundational pieces are. We're going to make sure you know the federal and the territorial codes and regulations. We're going to make sure in terms of knowing the interplay of them. And then also in the third module, which we'll talk about, we're going to see a lot more interaction of that when we talk about accessible elements. But the first module is really to get that kind of landscape. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about how to navigate the Department of Justice updated ADA primer for small businesses. If anybody out there has seen the older version of the ADA primer, this has been around for quite a while, and DOJ had updated it. So we're of course using the most updated version. And what we do basically is we go on to the actual primer and we navigate it per the topic or per the chapter or per the section. And so it's a nice way for small businesses to really start understanding, how do I kind of move or navigate this document? It's not extensively overbearing, but it's nice to know, to have someone show you how to navigate it so you can get to the sections you want to quickly based on the type of business that you have. So navigating the DOJ primer is very helpful. We let people know that you can obviously navigate it online. Some people like hard copies. I'm not sure if DOJ is still printing them. They used to. And I don't know if the ADA Center that we are an affiliate with, if they have any hard copies. So if anybody out there would like to actually get one, let me know. I'd be happy to follow up and see what I can find out for you. We also talk about in this section, technical materials and assistance. And one of the reasons in terms of these resources is because there's a lot of times that businesses don't even know that it's out there for free. And in terms of different kinds of specs or designs and things that you may have to go pay an architect a lot of money just for some initial or cursory information, you might find out, you know what, I can start with some of this now and get myself a little bit more ramped up. So the technical materials and assistance is very important because not only as in terms of, as I mentioned, the materials, but you can also call different technical assistance providers and they can give you information per your specific establishment. Again, it's usually all non-binding. It's usually not legal assistance, but it is technical assistance. These are people who are experts in their field. You can talk to someone about outdoor developed areas through University of Chicago, or you can talk to Universal Design Specialists out of University of North Carolina, or you can talk to, of course, the ADA Center, where we talk about the different resources that are within Federal Region 2, which is, of course, includes the U.S. Virgin Islands. So lots and lots of materials, lots of resistance. And in terms, I just wanted to point out that we're not going to go on any web sites today, but the Department of Justice has an ADA section called ADA Business Connection. It's a great resource. Again, that's something that we go through when we talk about the first module. Okay. So in terms of, again, a little bit more details of the overview, in terms of the questions sometimes we get too, things like grandfather clause, we talk about that. We talk about the access board who develops the guidelines. As I mentioned, we talk about some of the interplay of the federal guidelines, which is fondly known as ADAG, and of course, the Virgin Island building codes, and then the international building codes. So again, for small business, it does start to get a little bit technical. At some point, we hope to, when we run it again, we will have some of the experts join us, such as the Department of Licensing, or maybe in terms of the ADA coordinator for the governor. He has worked a lot with issuance of the occupancy and the safety and also accessibility of buildings. So again, we'll bring people to kind of bring that all together and connect those dots. And in terms, again, I already mentioned navigating Department of Justice, the non-discriminatory requirements, again, depending on how you navigate the primer, you could be looking at physical or you could be looking at the service aspect, design and specs for built environment, and the federal resources. I mentioned to you a lot of the the technical resources or the materials. But there's also, again, through the ADA portal with Department of Justice, there's also a huge tax incentive package. And that is actually something we talk about almost in every training. So again, you'll see that as a common bullet because of the fact, again, the Department of Justice tax incentive package does cover both programmatic, or we call service side, and it does cover physical side as well. Okay, so barring no questions or any kind of comments from the audience, I guess I'll continue to move ahead. Now, the next module is a very extensive module. They're all 2 hours long, but when I say extensive, we're really talking about one topic a little bit more than any other topic, and that's proper etiquette and language. And so one of the things that we talk about, and I want to just mention it right off the tops, is the image. One of the difficulties that we have for marketing when it comes to marketing for people, including people with disabilities, is we find a lot of times it's just not positive marketing. This is actually a friend of mine that I met, goodness, I think I want to say over to almost 10 years now. And she and I have been colleagues and nice friends. And I always talk to her about the fact that there are just not really a lot of positive images of people with disabilities. And this is a picture I just love of her. And I asked her, could I use it? You make me, when I look at it, I look happy, you know, makes me happy. It doesn't look like someone who's depressed. It doesn't make me, you know, feel like someone I should feel sorry for. And so that positive image is so important. And so she certainly gave me permission to use it. And I want to mention the fact that positive imaging is really where the heart is when it comes to not only serving customers, but also marketing. If you don't see people with disability as a viable option for you as a customer, you're really not going to, you know, it's going to be not only overlooked, but you certainly won't have any desire to interact with them. And so this is why it's so important that we make sure that we put positive images, that we put images that show that people with disabilities are consumers, and they are, and that's something we talk about certainly, is the business case and return on investment. So again, it all starts out with imaging. We know that with marketing, and particularly when it comes to people with disabilities, the stock pictures are just really poor to really none. So business idea there for someone out there. So, okay, so an overview of Module 2, as I mentioned, one thing we talk about is the disposable income and hidden market. We really get into the fact of the disposable income rates, let's say of preteens, or what they call the tween, in terms of how much is spent with that compared to that of people with disabilities. So really get into the kind of the crux of what's spent, but what's the outcome, and what could be spent, which could have a greater outcome, because people don't realize, again, through statistics and demographic information we go through, including age, that this is a very large group, and it's a group that is not tapped into in terms of capitalism, because we know the only thing that matters, and this isn't being cold or disrespectful, but we know that the only thing that matters and the only color that matters is the almighty dollar, green. And so who and how people walk through your doors probably does not matter. It shouldn't matter. And truly, if we want to tap into the economic, really empowerment that people with disabilities have, we talk about that quite a bit through this whole presentation, because if small businesses don't believe that this is a group that should be leveraged, then I'm sorry, people aren't going to waste their time. They're going to think, why would I'm not going to get a return on investment with that. We, meaning DRCVI, through this training, certainly tried to bring that to light. And to me, that's like trying to move a mountain at times. Attitude is much harder to move than a mountain. And some of it really come down to some of those basic human conditions of attitude. Okay. Again, I already mentioned DOJ tax incentive. It will come up many a times. And then what we do in addition, unlike the other module, is we really get into examples of them. We get into examples of, let's say that you're going to have a grand opening. Let's say you want to use, an ASL interpreter, or maybe you're looking to expand your parking and you're not sure exactly what could be used as a form of a tax incentive. Maybe you're looking to create or retrofit your website. Can that be used? And on certain occasions, it can be used. So we really get into not only examples, but we try to break it down in what I call a gross graph, to show what it could look like if you spend this much and how much a tax incentive can help offset that. So we even try to get a little bit into the calculations, again, gross. But these are the things that I think that if small businesses see that there's absolutely this hidden market with, much more disposable income than people thought, well then, okay, not only do I want to market to them, but I want them to come to my door now. I want them to come right through it. And now, how do I serve them? And that's what we talk about extensively, pretty much as the bulk, which I would consider a good hour and then some, talking about that interaction, talking about specifically of different disabilities. What we do is we talk about the definition of that disability. Sometimes people don't really know how to define. We certainly get into etiquette and language, and going back to definition, sometimes language dictates definition, and that's not good because such things in the past we would not want to use, words like cripple, things like even handicap. And even though handicap is really widely used, it has a negative connotation historically. The preferred language, of course, is people with disabilities or accessible features. Again, we get into all of this to make sure. And also give you statistics. How many people really do have this kind of disability? We know globally or generally that nationally that there's about 20% of the population, give or take, maybe a little bit less. But when we talk about it specifically, what does that mean when it's someone who uses a wheelchair or someone who is maybe deaf or hard of hearing? What about somebody who has maybe learning disabilities or other kind of cognitive disabilities? So we really break that down. Sometimes there's no change of etiquette or even language, but sometimes there is. And so we talk about that. We certainly talk about service animals. That's a very big part of small businesses, making sure that small businesses know what are the rights and the responsibilities of a small business when it comes to service animals. And we definitely clarify that small service animals are not the same as therapy or emotional animals, and they are not always under the same rights as a service animal. And we get into that very much so for the small businesses to really really define and redefine what is a service animal. And then, of course, we talk about that professional or that staff development opportunity. As I was mentioning with Module 2 when I started, sometimes you don't even know where to go to as a business owner or an HR manager or somebody in higher up with operations. You may not know where to go to. This training will tell you exactly where to go to. There's everything from online to customized to self-paced and eventually, of course, in person. So if you're a small business and you really want to take the bull by the horn and say, I want my staff to be as disability, customer service competent, and I'm taking the bull by the horn, we can help you get there. Maybe it's even us who can provide it, but if it's not us, there's plenty of other opportunities. Again, self-paced, structured. Most of them that I know of are all free. So it's a great opportunity. We let you know exactly where to find them. Okay. Before I go on to Module 3, I just want to check with Sbdc if there's any questions out there, and whether it's Zoom land or Facebook land.
No questions right now.
Okay, I'll keep on going then. So we've gone through half the training, and now we're back to what we kind of started with the first training on Module 3, which is accessible elements and building codes. Now, it differs a bit from the first one because the first one, again, was really focused on navigating the primer. But you can't navigate the primer if you don't know certain, building blocks, as I call them, like federal and territorial codes and international codes. That's why you see a little bit of it. But now this Module 3 is going to really get into the specs. It's going to get into the designs. There's videos that we show that shows exactly how it is to be if you're looking at protruding objects, if you want to remove a barrier, if you're creating something. So it's so nice because sometimes, it's nice to have the instructor, but of course you want to have somebody or another mode of learning. And that's why we try to mix it up with some multimedia, and especially coming from the Access Board. If you're in this business of building codes, you certainly know of them. If you're a small business owner, you may not know of them, but the Access Board is an amazing resource, and we use so much of their stuff to make sure that we have, I think, top of the line resources. Okay. So to go over Module 3, one of the things, again, it's a revisit from 1, but in terms of the international, the national, and the territorial building codes, how they work together, and what chapter to look up for what. There's I think my understanding, there's at least 5 different ones. And so, I've worked around them, but I've never been a certified building code. And even though I can train on it a little bit, this is where we bring, again, the experts in, again, whichever department that does the permits, to be able then to come on in and speak very fluently. Because as a business owner, you're trying to learn, you're trying to digest this, and you want to have someone not only as an expert, but potentially as the one who's going to come out and maybe even look at your place. And so what a great asset to have. And again, we're going to bring that forward to when we do this again, particular with Module 3. We go through the updates with ADAG, which is the ADA Accessibility Guidelines, which again is created and developed by the Access Board. And so this was updated in 2010. There's some harbor issues. There's some safety net issues. There's some, some of those kinds of things. So we talk through that to make sure that you understand in terms of what's, what are those phasing in, and what's, we don't use the term grandfathered, it's either before or after. And so we help small businesses understand that a little bit more clearly. We also go in depth, an overview of the checklist for existing facilities. Now, the checklist for existing facilities is really, to me, just like the ADA accessibility guidelines, the ADAG, which I had a picture of that on when we started Module 3. That and the checklist for existing facilities is really what you need to be as accessible as possible in the most layman's term, meaning, of course, you probably will have somebody who implements this as a, whether it's a design professional or an architecture, but in terms of starting, you as a business owner probably can understand some of this. So what we do is we go through the checklist to make sure that people know how to use it, how to navigate it, and it's in such simple layman's term. You can print it offline, you can do it online, and we go through all of that in terms of maneuvering that. And again, as a small business owner, when you have those 2 resources, you're really able to have an excellent starting point. Because as I mentioned, in ADA, there's not a grandfather clause. There's no grandfathering of the ADA. What it's more referred to as existing facility. Were you existing before the ADA or not? And if you were existing, then we have a checklist for you for existing facilities. And so that's how we come to address the establishments that were pre-ADA, of which we know is, of course, 1990. Now, another thing we go into are the 3 priorities for small businesses. Again, our goal is always to keep this as fluent and simple as possible. We know clearly the regulations aren't simple, and certainly the interplay and the interface of them are not. But I like how the Access Board made this a really simple 1, 2, 3. And it really gives you a good starting point to then be able to say, okay, now I can get my head around this. Okay, now I see where this is going. Then we talk about that and the 3 priorities in terms of the entrance or the parking and the entrance and what's inside. And if you have anything auxiliary, such as bathrooms and drinking fountains and things of that nature. But the checklist actually follows that 3 priority model. So it's a great opportunity, again, in layman's term, to just even do a self-check on your establishment. Let me just check it myself. Let me not call someone. Let me see if I can do this. And I have a feeling that you're going to find out it's a lot easier than you think. Or let's just say you want a little assistance, call one of the tech centers that are free. They'll help you get going in the right direction. They can do some clarification for you. And again, I just think this is a great opportunity where a small business can really get knee deep without spending maybe no money at this point before they even get started. And so again, the 3 priorities, the checklist are great tools to have. And then talking about tools, we talk about some of the common tools to assess for accessibility. Now, one of them, of course, is the typical ruler with a level, things of that nature. But we also talk about, of course, you've got the, what am I trying to think of? The measuring tape, right? But they actually have an ADA measuring tape. You can actually order one that has got all the specs for the ADA regulations in or on the measuring tape. It's really cool. So, you could get real fancy. Of course, you could just use a regular one. There is a website, I can't recall the name, but if you Google it in terms of accessible tools, accessible equipment, not equipment, but tools more so. You're going to find some of this stuff. I believe there's one that does quite a bit of that. And that's where that ADA ruler came in. So, but some other common tools we talk about are very non-technical. We'll cut out the width of a wheelchair. And I've done this in trainings. We just cut out the rectangular shape, the width of it. And then what we do is I show you just literally how you can lay that piece of cloth down. That's the proper width of a wheelchair. And then you know if you've got enough clearance or not. It can literally be that simple. What if you're trying to do a bathroom and you're not sure about the clear path or the turning radius? Well, I just happen to have a nice 6-foot cutout circle. Keep it in your toolbox. There you go. When and if you have a bathroom need, you just pull out that, or anytime actually you want some sort of navigation, that 6-foot circle will be a very, very simple tool that you can go ahead and, again, does it have that clearance? So common tools, things you can make, things you can buy. And it's, again, some of it's very inexpensive, but all of it helps to make sure that you're staying not only in construction and regulatory compliance, but it's also safety too. Comes down to that. We want to be safe about what we're doing. So these are some just fun, common tools that you can start again when you get the construction going, when you get the other kind of more heavy implementation. Obviously, these are all cursory things that you'll be looking at before any of that happens. We definitely talk about examples of accessibility of different venues, specifically in the Virgin Islands. As a matter of fact, I pulled up one in St. Croix that we used, and it's something that, again, brings everything together. We're talking about these elements, and we're talking about this tool, and we're talking about this regulation. Well, how do we bring it together? Through examples. And so we have one that has to do with a small boutique hotel. We have one for, of course, with an eatery. I'm blanking on the other two, but they're specific to VI, and they're also specific to tourism, being obviously a very big part of the economy. And so I believe we have 4 examples of that, and how we a gift shop. I know that's one of them. And so it really helps, I think, for small businesses to get their head around that, to see what that visually looks like, and to give those examples. So we definitely do that as part of kind of a closing with Module 3 to kind of bring it all together. And again, we revisit the application of DOJ tax incentive package. We talk about it again as it applies to any venue. And if small businesses have questions on that, or they'd like to use that, we get them to the right people that could help them. We know a lot of times small businesses do not have an accounting arm. And so that does make it a little bit more cumbersome for the tax incentive package. I personally was on a project in upstate New York. We actually were the accounting arm for the businesses. So we were able to do that paperwork. So again, I might be able to help you find someone who does that, or at least get you some technical assistance, because again, certainly this is part of what help offset the cost of accessibility. And again, per the primer and per the purpose of the primer is to be able to remove barriers and make your business more accessible. So with that, I will pause to see if there's any questions. If not, we can go on to our last module.
Question: how does a business go about getting grandfathered into the ADA?
Sure. So basically how it works is that when the ADA was legislated in 1990, Department of Justice gave many of what they call the covered entities, including small businesses, a 24-month to get into compliancy, which would have put them into July of 1992. Okay. So if your business was pre-1990, then at that point, you were to do whatever you could from 1990 to 1992 to get into compliance, whether that meant removing barriers or whatever it may be. If your establishment potentially is a historic preservation, that is another area of, again, not grandfathering, but more dated, or in this case, historic buildings. And I know there's a lot of, certainly them in the VI. So you don't kind of get grandfathered in, but if your business was pre-ADA, 1990, then you are considered existing facility. And therefore, your rules are a little bit different than new construction.
Okay, cool. But you're not exempt from ADA, you just have slightly different rules to abide by.
Correct, correct. So again, if you became a business after 1990, you had a set of rules called new construction, and those were the federal guidelines to follow, of course, in conjunction with the state new construction guidelines. And then if you existed before 1990, your rules were related to existing facilities, which meant that you were typically under what they call renovations, restructuring, whatever the case may be, because you're kind of retrofitting now in terms of, again, that 1990 date. And because of the fact that you, as a business that existed before the ADA, you now can use the DOJ tax incentive, because again, the purpose of the ADA for businesses was not to break the bank to make them accessible. It was to make it reasonable and achievable. And so what happens to the businesses that were pre-1990 is Department of Justice kind of expects that the businesses will provide with, let me get the right phrase, will do what's readily achievable. What can you readily achieve to become accessible? And that's what that checklist. So if you're existing, use that checklist. That's a good starting place. And of course, lots of technical assistance, including myself, to help you keep moving along that line.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so we'll do our last module as a wrap up. And I kind of started out with this with the second module talking about positive imaging. And so when we talk about that, it really is, so much goes into it. We, especially right now with everything going on, I mean, we've got a lot of different dynamics that are, in my opinion, kind of difficult in America. And so how do we make sure that we stay as inclusive as possible, even while we're going through a very difficult time, in my opinion, not only just because of the pandemic, but the kind of the repercussions. So of course, we have a lot of different racial issues going on. And so how to make sure that we just stay as positive as we can. So this marketing, in my opinion, is even more important than ever, because we have to stop, one and foremost, the stereotyping. People with disabilities are under some of the worst stereotypings I can tell you. And I'm a person of color. I know we have our issues with stereotypes, but I have to be honest, I think sometimes, disability is worse. And then when you have the intersectionality of whether it's gender, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's race, whether it's age, or whether it's religion, and then you have that intersectionality with disabilities, you're in a double, triple kind of situation. So you can see quickly where people all of a sudden say, I never thought about them as people, as customers coming. Where are they? We hear that so many times. They say, well, you talk about this diverse America. Well, where are they? Well, have you marketed to them? Have you thought about how you market? Well, I market generally. Why? How come, what? They don't read the general stuff? Well, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But guess what? If your place is not accessible, then you can be sure that their friends or their family told them, no need to go there. They're not accessible. And when a place does that, when they send that message, they're sending the messages they don't want to be inclusive. And so I could tell you, as a person of color and also as a person with an invisible disability, I could tell you that I don't patron places that that are not fully accessible. I don't need a wheelchair. I don't need the ramp. I don't need the accessible bathroom, but I'm not going to go into a place that doesn't support that, or at the very least includes that. And so this is my own personal thing, but I think if that philosophy and that mentality would just be more ubiquitous, we'd have a better chance of not only being fair in our capitalism, but let's face it, small businesses can continue to make a heck of a lot of money if they would just break down that stereotypical or that non-inclusive marketing. So with that, we talk about all of that and then some in this module. And you can see the Gerber baby, what a great precedent that set, what an adorable child, a woman of color who's looking very fashionable, just happens to have a couple of braces or crutches. And then we see an office setting where everybody's included, everybody's engaged, doesn't matter, someone's using a wheelchair. And that's the kind of inclusivity that we want to show, and that's the kind of positive marketing we want to show. So again, some of the themes that you'll hear from, I believe, the second module is that return on investment, disposable income in the hidden market. We bring that back up again. If you are part of the 4-part series, some of this will be a little bit repetitive, but if you're not, then none of this will be repetitive because these can be taken in isolation or separate in terms of a training that you may need just specific to your needs. Again, expanding your business, including connecting with local disability agencies. One of the things I just mentioned was when businesses say, well, where are they? Where are these people? Well, have you ever talked to, like, for example, talk to a local disability agency? How about the local independent living center, which is one in Wheatley and one over in St. Croix? And I really apologize. I can see it, but I can't think of the place, but they're both right there. You know, the independent living center is there for the whole territory. You can connect with them. They have contacts with hundreds upon hundreds of people with disabilities. I'd be glad to know more about your business. You know, there's a vocational rehab, though they work with people with disabilities to help find employment. They're always looking for businesses to not only hire people with disabilities, but hey, you get to know also all their people and they get to know you. So there's ways to connect with local disability agencies that can expand your market. Sometimes it is called targeted marketing. Sometimes, you know, as a small business, you're doing a special promotion. You're going to do a targeted marketing. Why not do one for people with disabilities? You might find out they have a lot more money than you think. And then all of a sudden, not only are they coming to you, their friends, their family, and all of a sudden now you've really exponentially grown your market for that. Okay. Positive imaging and issues with stock pictures of people with disabilities. As I mentioned, this is a business to be waiting for someone out there who wants to start a modeling agency or a photography business for people with disabilities. The fact that there's just not enough positive images. And how can we do marketing and how can we do anything that includes people with disabilities if we don't have a positive image? I can say the same thing about women. I could say the same thing about race. I could say the same thing about LGBT, and I can go on and on. So we all know, not just America, but as human beings, it's all about the image. And the more positive we make it, that's wonderful, as I said, for society, but for you business, as the bottom line, more money to be made. Okay. With that, we just get into different kinds of social medias and how to include them online, different various mediums. As I mentioned, we also did the additional training that had to do with web accessibility and e-commerce. So again, we talk about that a little bit. Talk about alternative formatting, including Braille. People are like, why would you Braille? And that's what I say to businesses, why would you Braille? You don't need to Braille. So, you know, we come up with all sorts of ways to have alternative formatting. You know, Braille is a very unique thing, but it's a great place to start because it seems a lot of people still think that that's very common. It's not as common. I'm not saying it's obsolete by any means, but if you want to know, most people who have any kind of vision or disability, they're pretty much online. So it's better for you to spend your time not with the Braille, with going online and making sure your website is fully accessible for people with visual disability. So that's the kind of stuff we talk about: accessible websites, e-commerce, as I mentioned, and again, Department of Justice talking about their resources. Okay. The last thing I want to mention before I close, and if there's any last questions, is that the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands, we are an affiliate of the Northeast ADA Center. I mentioned that in the beginning. I want to mention that again in terms of their resources. They have a technical assistant hotline for small businesses that gladly you can call. It's toll free, and you can also email them. And I myself was a technical assistant specialist and manager, so I absolutely helped answer the phone lines and manage them. And I can tell you that it's very easy to talk to us. Like I'm still working there, right? It's very easy to talk to them. Unlike a lot of other agencies, it doesn't take a whole bunch of time to get a call back. Sometimes they answer the phone right off the bat. So it's a really good resource where if you do want to have someone to talk to and talk to pretty quickly, great resource, and also email. They created last year a small business toolkit. And the reason I bring this up because as a lot of businesses want to know what are those free resources, this is one of them right here. And the small business toolkit does have a COVID-19 section. And I can tell you also that the small business toolkit included the Virgin Islands as part of their development and research, or research and development. So kudos to that in terms of including, of course, the USVI in their small business toolkit. They do customized training, of course, in person, online, just like we do. Part of why we do the evaluation is to make sure that not only do we get feedback, but for our folks at Northeast ADA who do provide us resources to be able to provide free trainings. They have access to federal materials and networks. They do an annual, or is it every other year? I apologize. They do an ADA conference, which is phenomenal. The top DOJ, Access Board, EEOC top people. I've been to it. It's amazing. And we, of course, are an affiliate with them. So with that, Mary Jo, I'm going to pass it back to you and any questions or answers that people may have.
Right now, I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm really good at talking while my mic is still muted. Okay, we do have a link for an evaluation form that we would like people to complete. The link is in the chat, so if you will click on the link and complete the evaluation, that will be greatly appreciated. The SBDC as well as the ADA Center really value that information, and it helps us to better prepare additional webinars for our audience. And for those of you that are not aware, the VI SBDC has offices in St. Thomas, St. John, as well as St. Croix. So please feel free to give us a call. We are not seeing people in person at this point, but please call us, email us, and we will schedule an appointment with you either via Zoom, via conference call, via email, email chain. So we're definitely here to help you. And for those of you that are, so we're definitely here to help you. And for the rest of the week, we have a couple more webinars. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday, we have the SBA, and we're going to be talking about the Paycheck Protection Program, and Mr. Wayne Huddleston from the SBA will be there for that. On Wednesday afternoon, we have the Disaster Resiliency and Preparedness Workshop, and it's from e-commerce, from bricks and mortar to clicks and mortar, and that's from 2 to 3. And then on Thursday, we have contracting with the local government, and then at 12 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock, we also have the basic bookkeeping series, and that'll be the 4th in the basic bookkeeping series. So we have a lot of information left for you guys to take advantage of this week. Please go to our website and register, go to our Facebook page and register, and we will see you tomorrow and the rest of the week. And Ms. Shami Carr, on behalf of the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center and our state director and the staff on St. Croix and St. Thomas, we want to thank you for your time and energies in presenting this valuable information on the ADA Primer Series.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us and continuing the partnership to make this a better and more accessible Virgin Islands. Thank you.